All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Dimes and Donuts podcast, your deep dive into the weekly fantasy happenings of the BAAD Owners League. And we are here in week 6, Nick. Can you believe that?
Honestly, it seems like it's gone really fast.
It's gone super fast. I feel like week 6 is like, I don't know. I know it's the 17 game schedule. There's something about that last game that makes it so much longer. But for fantasy, we're so much shorter. So I don't know.
Well, and it's the first week of buys, so it's a huge week as far as fantasy goes. You finally have to, you can't just throw in all your best players anymore. Now you have to deal with bye weeks, and injuries are starting to pile up. So this is, I feel like, really when teams start to get tested.
Yeah, could not agree more. We talked about it a lot last week about what this week was going to be like, and I was kind of surprised. I mean, we'll go into it soon, but I think everybody did pretty well, considering that we were losing a lot of players.
100%. And speaking of last week, we actually have a little bit of news, a little bit of an update from you and Brandon covering it last week. Y'all did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But
you did a great.
After the stat corrections happened last week, the Trash Fires ended up losing a few points, causing them to lose the median win, and Point Break FC ended up stealing that from them after stat corrections.
It was absolutely devastating. I think he had only beaten that median win by less than half a point.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so close. So yeah, going into stat corrections on Wednesday, I was like, oh man, if literally anything happens, he could move, and unfortunately. So yeah, that pushed him down to 7-3, tied with myself for the possession of first place. And then, Point Break did get that extra win median.
Right. So that brought Point Break up to 3-9, kind of starting to make a little bit of separation from the Dallas Clovers, who are just absolutely, tanking for that number 1 overall pick. But yeah, so we also actually have some other news.
Breaking news.
Big breaking news. So the Flower Mound team, you'll notice, is not going to be in any further podcasts because their management has been removed due to 2 weeks of starting non-active players.
Yeah, we took a league vote and decided that they just did not cut it in terms of what we expect from BAAD owners. And, just like Dan Schneider, he was cutting into our revenue.
Exactly.
We took a vote of no confidence, and yeah, the owner of the then Flower Mound team. How funny is that? They were called the Flower Mound team, just like the Washington football team. There's a lot of
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of ties in here. But yeah, no, that owner has been removed, and we would like to welcome Tori and the Big Orcas to the league. They're trying to make a big splash this year, and it's going to be tough. They're starting in week 6, but they're still kind of in that middle of the pack range. It was not a bad team to buy into, in my opinion.
No, not at all. A lot of young talent. There's a lot of people who, I'll just, occasionally you're just like, oh, well, I wonder where this player is. I wonder if they're open to trades and whatnot. A lot of those players are on the newly acquired Big Orcas roster. So
I think
there's a lot going for them.
Yeah, we'll just rattle off some of them here. So Nick Chubb, who has been performing incredibly well this season. Jalen Hurts, he's, fantasy quarterback number 1 or 2 just about every week. Jerry Jeudy, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, Montez Sweat, Patrick Queen. These are some young guys that are just absolutely incredible. And don't forget Jonathan Taylor, he's just out right now.
Yeah, and you also, like the wide receivers alone, AJ Brown, Michael Pittman.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There's a lot of young talent there that's going to be able to last for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was an incredible move for Tori to go ahead and pick up this team. So yeah, thank you to Tori, and we wish the Big Orcas big luck moving forward. So yeah, trades of the week, just like the title of last week's episode of the Dimes and Donuts podcast, it's the usual suspects. It's myself and Abi. I'm surprised that we didn't have like a 3 trade here with you because you've been involved in a lot too. True. But yeah, it was myself and Abi. Only 1 trade this week, but it's definitely another blockbuster. Abi's been a part of 2 blockbuster trades this year, and here is the second. So the Castle Rock Rockers acquire Max Crosby, Matthew Stafford, Hayden Hurst in exchange for Kyle Trask, and then a 1st round, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, and 6th round pick from 2023.
Wow.
We almost ran out of space. I mean, look at how small that draft has to be.
You decided, do you have any draft picks left after this?
I have 0.
Oh my gosh. So you're all in.
I'm all in. So after the last 2 weeks, I gave away my second round pick for Austin Eckler. Turned out to be, I think, the best trade this season. And then kind of was just looking around and I was like, I don't know. I don't believe that Abi is going to be that big of a problem next year. I think that because he's gotten rid of, a lot of really, really good players on his team, he's going to have to fill them with rookies. And, we don't have like an abundance of slots on our rosters, in my opinion. Like, yeah, we've got a lot of bench slots, we've got taxi squads, but I don't know how long you're willing to wait on the development of some of these players. So let's say he hits on all 15, right? Like even the best players, like take Max Crosby, for example. He came into the league in 2019, had a pretty okay, first 2 years and then became a breakout star. So like, is he going to be willing to wait for that? Or will he eventually drop some of those players on waivers for anybody to pick up? I mean, I don't know. The draft confuses me. I may be, very, very upset at this move if, my first round or third round pick turn out to be, some generational quarterback or wide receiver. But, I knew I was going to have to overpay for Crosby, and I think I was totally okay doing that. He was the only person in the draft that I really, really wanted that I didn't get, if that makes sense. There was a little bit of like draft angst going in as well, like with Abi picking him in front of me. So yeah, I like the move personally. Just give me your initial thoughts and then I can do a deeper dive if you have any.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are when this first popped up, I was shocked. I am so confused. Honestly, I don't know what you two are doing. I think both of you two are crazy for this deal. I mean, someone's obviously going to end up looking like they won. Max Crosby's obviously the big person to watch. But at the same time, Hayden Hurst was an upgrade for you at tight end as well, correct?
He was a huge upgrade, and I have like probably the most middling quarterbacks out of everybody, but I have a lot of them. So, if I was a better manager, I could probably do something with that. But I like the idea of having 6 potential starters every single week. I'm like, okay, well, this guy's playing this guy's playing this guy's playing this.
Yeah, you definitely have the most starting quarterbacks.
Right, so having Matthew Stafford, helps. Because, I mean, for example, he's going to play against, I think, Atlanta after the bye week. I might start him against Atlanta. I mean, there are options there. Okay. Having another starting quarterback. But yeah, mainly this whole thing is for Crosby. Like, I probably would have given maybe a 4th or a 3rd for Stafford, maybe like a 6th for Hayden Hurst, for an up tight end. So if you really look at it, then it's like Crosby is the 1st, 4th, 5th, and Kyle Trask, and I don't think that that's an overpay.
Sure.
I mean, obviously it takes me back a little bit moving forward in the draft, but I will see how much teams improve, honestly, like with their draft picks next year. I don't think it's going to be much, and I think that waivers are going to be really important next year because of that incoming rookie class. When people don't pick people, like let's say there's a Justin Jefferson out there or something like that. I'm not that concerned about the draft next year, obviously. We are the LA Rams of last year, and that's hurting them this year. But they did get it.
But they won.
They won. And I haven't even had the only person that played for me this week after this trade was Hayden Hurst. So I haven't even had a chance to get any points with Max Crosby or Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's on bye this week, and Crosby was on bye last week. So we'll see if they have a noticeable impact on my team. But you look at that defensive line position alone. I think that as far as the disparity, like between the top end and the
value over replacement,
right? I think that the defensive line might have the highest number in that category, and so to have Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, and Micah Parsons as your starting 3, with DeForest Buckner and Grady Jarrett as your backups, I think it's the most stacked room in the league.
Oh, 100%. I mean, with this addition, you without a doubt have the best defensive line and it's not even close out of any of the bad owners teams.
And they're all under 25 years old.
Yeah, you are not going to... Well, I was going to say you don't have to use any draft capital towards defensive line for a few years, but it looks like at this rate you're not going to be using draft capital for anything over the next few years.
Yeah, well, not this year. Again, I didn't trade away 2024 picks, so I have 1 year of no draft picks, unless something comes up and at the end of the season, I start giving players away for draft picks, because, who knows?
True.
Let's say my fortunes completely turn, and I'm able to trade away some of my older players for someone that's making a push to get some draft capital back. So again, week 6, the season isn't over, but
100%.
if my season ended right now, and I'm tied for second, I'm going in with a potential bye into the playoffs, I would be very happy with the decisions that I've made so far. But we've got plenty of weeks left.
100%. And we'll just have to see. I mean, all in all, I think this is really just a huge move for the Dallas Clovers, who have obviously been trying to accumulate a ton of draft picks. This puts them up to, a ridiculous amount. I think it's like 16. We'd have to look. We'd have to go back and count. I think it might be 15 or 16. But seriously, the 2023 draft is going to be a huge move for the Dallas Clovers, assuming they don't start, purchasing players with all their accumulated draft picks at this point.
Right. That is their Super Bowl. If they're going to be purchasing players, I would be absolutely shocked. I don't know what they would be trying to get that they hadn't already given away. So
100%.
Yeah.
So let's just hop on into the dimes of the week, where we have CD's Nuts, TD11 Tudgays, Dallas Clovers, the Plano Nukes, Trash Fires, and Castle Rock Rockers all getting some sort of player up in that sort of recognition category.
A lot of people, again, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see.
It somewhat shows how diversified all the talent is still currently. I wonder if, over like a few years, one team might start accumulating a ton of these dimes just through good drafting and, through whatever. But
yeah, it should be the most spread out it'll ever be right now if we draft it correctly.
Completely agree. So let's just hop right into the quarterback of the week. Joe Burrow of the TD11 Tudgays with 32.5 points.
Yeah, he had an incredible game. He and Jamar Chase were hooking up the entire time, doing it in the same stadium that they won that national championship in. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. It's about time that Joe Burrow made this for the Tudgays. And yeah, 32.5 points. Those are Josh Allen numbers, right, Nick?
Yeah, no, 100%. He's been having some issues. Joe Burrow, that is. I think the whole Bengals team has been, trying to find themselves, trying to get things moving. But this is a great game for Joe Burrow. 1 rushing touchdown, 3 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 300 yards. That's exactly what you're trying to get out of your star quarterback.
Yeah.
Especially, Joe Burrow, who you have to spend so much draft capital in order to have gotten.
Oh, no, true. I think they've kind of lost their identity this year. I know last year they were, okay, we're going to sack them a bunch, but they're still going to beat us on all their deep balls. They were the deep ball, 40-plus yard team. And, they've keyed in on that every single week. That's why Jamar Chase's numbers have been low. Joe Burrow's numbers have been low. But, this game they could not contain him. Could not stop him. We'll see if that's a trend, if they've finally been able to beat those press coverages, or, if the Saints just didn't have it in the secondary.
Which, would be somewhat surprising. The Saints seem to have a pretty strong secondary right now, so...
Great defense in general. Demario Davis.
Being able to put up 32.5 fantasy points against that is a pretty good sign for the TD11 Tudgays that Joe Burrow is going to hopefully get it back together. Not that obviously you'd ever be too concerned. He's a bona fide stud, right? So, but, he just hasn't been putting it together this year. But let's move on to the running back of the week.
Yeah, take me through
Jackson of the Plano Nukes.
I want to say last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, when Jonathan Taylor was out. Somebody else tried to put Phillip Lindsay in because they're like, okay, well, he's the backup. Obviously, Phillip Lindsay's going to do exactly what Jonathan Taylor does. And Phillip Lindsay did not. But you tried to do the same thing with Deion Jackson on the same team.
Yep.
And why did he get the carry? What happened? What did you see moving in to that week?
What I see when going into that week is that the week before he had a pretty great week. He got 15.1 points the week before off of only, 13 attempts for
in the worst football game of all time. He still
sure,
got
100%. I think Amazon needed to. That was the Thursday night game, right?
Yeah, that was awful. Like they had plenty of rest for this game, and Deion showed it. I mean, he was basically a wide receiver here. Like, he was their number one receiving threat too, with 10 receptions. That's 10 points right there.
It was he was unstoppable. It also somewhat helped. I don't have a very strong running back room in general, and so I was kind of willing to be like, hey, I need to go out and get a running back. Go and get this guy. He's going to be starting this week. That's better than some of my other options. Threw him up there, and I'm not going to lie, he did way better than I expected. I didn't expect him to be the running back dime of the week, right? But it paid off for me big time.
Who is your RB1 right?
Joe Mixon, who is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, Joe is great. Okay, cool. There's our running back.
Yeah,
Congrats.
That's the running back.
You'll make it next week, considering that you're projected only 2.55 points. But who knows? Maybe Jonathan Taylor will still be out.
Right. Well, the wide receiver of the week, much less of a surprise than the running back of the week, is Jamar Chase. 32.2 points for the Castle Rock Rockers.
Yeah, this is his second 30-plus point game of the season. The first one came in week 1, so he's really had that, peak valley type of season. But yeah, Jamar, like we said, just about Joe Burrow, like their connection is undeniable. Probably the best chemistry between any quarterback and wide receiver in the league, and that's something to consider when you're drafting him. Jamar's finally Jamar. He did a great job. This is what I expected to see just about every other week. Not every other week. But yeah, Jamar with 32.2 points. He had a touchdown in this game, 2 touchdowns in this game, and over 140 receiving yards. He went off.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things where, just like we were saying with Joe Burrow, once that whole team sort of starts getting it together, Jamar Chase is going to do better. The Bengals just in general have been struggling, and so and they are not a bad team. Once they get it together, you are going to start seeing Jamar Chase value. We'll get the return for how much he's valued.
Yeah, other than like the 2 powerhouses in the Chiefs and the Bills, who we got to see play this week, which is so awesome. I really do think that the Bengals are a top 5 team in the AFC, especially when you consider that Miami's fallen, the Ravens don't look that great anymore. And so I think that a lot of people selling on them early when, the only reason they lost a game was because of a missed extra point to the Steelers and, an off game against the Cowboys. It was silly. I really think the Bengals are going to be
a crazy blocked extra point at that,
Yeah.
So we'll see. Obviously, I don't think Jamar Chase is going to be going on the trade block for anyone anytime soon. But tight end of the week, Mike Gesicki.
Let's pour one out, Nick, for our boys that are at home crying right now. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce.
Right? This is by far the most surprising dime of the week for no other reason than it's not one of those two.
I'm just mad. I was really wanting that to go like the entire season, or at least wait until like week 10.
I would not have been shocked if players like Darren Waller, T.J. Hawkinson, George Kittle, Pat Freiermuth, those sort of tight ends steal a week. I was not seeing Mike Gesicki.
I don't think anybody was, except for the decision model of the Trash Fires. The computer knew, because the Trash Fires decided to start Mike Gesicki. And remember, the Trash Fires, their second overall pick in the entire league was Kyle Pitts, who rode the bench this week with 10 points, which was one of his best, weeks of the year. I think it might have been his best. Second best. Sorry, he had a 13-point week. So, yeah, even though he made a huge miss with Kyle Pitts, Mike Gesicki was pulling it out for him. He more than doubled what Kyle Pitts got.
Not only that,
computer's got something to say.
He started Mike Gesicki after Mike Gesicki's last 3 weeks before this were 1.6, 4.3, and 4. He started Mike Gesicki over Kyle Pitts with that.
Yeah. Is it just because of the matchup? Like, did they have a really bad linebacker room there? I don't know. I don't know what this could be. They're playing the Vikings. Okay, they have good linebackers there. Yeah. I'm thinking one off the top of my head. We'll talk about him later, I think. Or no, DB. Yeah, I don't know.
But hey, it worked for him.
Yeah, it worked. He knew what we didn't.
Right.
Sorry, Kyle Pitts. And really, sorry, Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. I really thought you guys were going to pull it out, but, Mike.
All right. Well, then let's keep going to the defensive lineman of the week, Quinnen Williams of the Dallas Clovers.
You gotta hate this if you're the Dallas Clovers, right? You're trying to get like no points, trying to tank, and Quinnen Williams just pops off.
I don't think you hate it because he's the sort of player. I mean, this is his 4th year. He's going to be around for a while. He's only 24, which is crazy, by the way. This is his 4th year and he's 24.
Right. That doesn't happen often.
That's the type of player that on a rebuilding team you want to have. Well, and seeing those sort of players have good weeks is encouraging for your next, 1 or 2 years. Sure,
but wouldn't you want Max Crosby instead?
I'm not arguing that.
It's very confusing. I don't know.
Well, not this week you wouldn't. Definitely would have wanted Quinnen Williams this week.
Yeah, that's true. He was on bye.
But so, no, 100%. I mean, I still think the Max Crosby thing, but he got with how many picks he got, that might have just been hard to overturn. But it worked out for him this week. Quinnen Williams with 34 points.
Yep. He also had a blocked field goal. You don't see that often from defensive linemen. So that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Like 3 points right there. 2 sacks. Hit the quarterback 3 times, forced a fumble. So he was just doing it everywhere.
That's on every level. It's like whenever the interceptions are thrown and offensive players get points because they got the tackle.
They get the tackle. It's my favorite. I love
it. But
we need to do a stat category for that.
We need a what?
We need a weird stat category.
That would be fun. I wonder if we can somehow get that pulled. We'll have to talk to our
data
people.
In the comments if you guys have specific stats you want tracked, tackles by offensive players or something like that. And then maybe we can.
That would be a fun thing to look at the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well that's our defensive lineman of the week, Quinnen Williams. Congrats.
Linebacker of the week with the highest single game point score so far, Alex Singleton.
There. Very nice. Yeah, Alex Singleton with 48 points. 48 points. He tackled 21 people. I can't.
That's insane.
Even imagine tackling people in an NFL game. It just means that your offense isn't on the field much, as his was not. The Broncos were pouring out all the darn time. And if I have Alex Singleton, or any Broncos defensive players for that matter, I am starting them, if they're decent.
What round do you think Alex Singleton was taken in the startup draft?
I'm going to guess, because you wouldn't have asked me if it wasn't high, I'm going to say like 43.
41. 41st round. A 41st round draft pick, startup draft pick, netting you 48 points.
Yeah, 48 points is actually the most that any BAAD player has ever scored. Sorry, BAAD with 2 A's. Like in the entire league, 48 points is the most anybody has scored. Week 1, we had 44 points, I believe. And this is now the highest ever.
Insane.
Nobody's ever broken 50. We're going to have a big celebration. We have a 50-point player. But yeah, 48 points for CD's Nut.
That's awesome.
In the 43rd round. Or 41st round. That's crazy.
41st. That's crazy. I mean, that's just value picks right there, right?
Way to go,
that's how
Alex.
you win. That's how you 100% win, getting value out of those late round picks. But moving on to the final dime of the week, Harrison Smith. 26 points for the DB category. Not a ton of points out of DBs this week.
No, there weren't. I don't think there were a lot of interceptions going around. I don't think there were too many passes defended. That's typically where you see, the numbers start to pile up for people if they're just having a lockdown day. But yeah, Harrison Smith with 26 points. He's the best out of everybody, which is kind of crazy.
Yep, I mean, he's just doing his thing. This isn't his first rodeo above 20 points. In fact, week 1 and week 2, he crested that 20-point milestone. So he's just a good all-around DB. Not too shocking that he ended up as the DB of the week. More so shocking that it was at 26 points.
Yeah, especially coming off a groin injury that he suffered in week 4. And
right.
It's clearly healed now. He's clearly good to go. There you go, Harrison. 26.
Way to go, Trash Fires. All right. So moving on to the Lost Change, a little different than Dimes of the Week. We only have 4 teams represented here.
We typically have more.
Yeah, typically have more. So TD11 Tudgays, Plano Nukes, Big Orcas, and Point Break FC are the only 4 teams represented on the Lost Change of the Week.
I think this is my favorite category. It's just such a feel-good category, but it's also just interesting. You know, like you can't feel too bad if you're here, but it also kind of stinks. Like it's awesome. I love it.
100%. So let's see. The quarterback bench warmer of the week, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G.
11 Tudgays.
This is what happened last week. So last week, Tom Brady was on this for the quarterback bench warmer. He also got like 18.94 points. It was something like that. It was really close. I don't have a problem with not starting Jimmy Garoppolo ever.
Agreed. Right.
Personally. Yeah, I mean, they may have lost this game because of him, but he still put up good numbers. And I don't know. Yeah, if I'm the Tudgays, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool. If I'm in a bind and I need to play somebody, I'll play Jimmy G.
Right. Yeah, I do think the only thing that would feel a little bad is they started Geno Smith over him. And Geno Smith had a bit of a rough week, only putting up 11.68 points. But at the same time,
you know, going just come up with back-to-back 33-point games.
Exactly.
Now. Yeah, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're good.
But yeah, so that's the quarterback bench warmer of the week. Kenyon Drake, the running back bench warmer of the week.
Yep, for Point Break. I was playing Point Break this week. Glad she didn't play the Drake. It just seems like it feels like he's got to be like 30 years old. He's only 28. I feel like he's been around the league, bouncing around so much. And yeah, I think he found the end zone this week with a rushing touchdown and almost had 120 yards on the ground with only one reception. Like typically when you see running backs go off in fantasy, it's, you know, what was his name again? Deion Jackson?
Yeah, Deion Jackson.
Yeah, it's people like Deion Jackson or Austin Eckler where they're catching like 10, 12 balls a game, you know, just for those PPR numbers. But Kenyon Drake is doing it the old school way on the ground with 120 yards rushing and only one reception. Yeah. Pretty incredible.
Only caught one pass.
That's crazy. In 2022.
Right, that's actually crazy. That's insane. Moving on to the wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a big game for the Chiefs, really kind of started showing out.
One of my least favorite players in the league. I can't believe he made it here. That's great. I mean, when you're playing against a defense as good as the Bills, they're going to take away your number one threat, or at least not. If they can't take him away, they'll at least limit him to the point where you're going to have to start throwing to somebody else. And I think Juju benefited from that, playing against a good defense. So, you know, going into a lot of these weeks, what I found in fantasy is if you have two good teams playing against each other, it seems like the second wide receiver or the second running back or the second option can actually do pretty well just because they're being taken away on the other side and that person can't just go crazy. So, yeah, it's not a bad thing you didn't start Juju. I think I would have been scared starting Juju going against the Bills secondary and, you know, Tremaine Edmonds and that whole defense that whole team just looks awesome. But yeah, I think that you just got scared about the Bills thing. And I don't know if Juju's had that great of a year this year. I know he certainly hasn't, you know, in the previous few seasons. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Especially sort of being able to slot. I think he does better being able to slot into a situation in which he's not the only threat, like you said. With Travis Kelce being on the field, being their basically de facto number one target.
He is. He's their number one.
Frees him up.
Yeah, I agree. He needs that. He needs that treatment. Always has. So let's see. Maybe going forward, like this is the Juju coming out game, and he's going to be just as good as he was in Pittsburgh. You know,
I'm sure TD11 Tuggays would love that. But speaking of tight ends, let's see what the tight end bench warmer of the week was. Robert Tonyan of the Plano Nukes.
Yep, Robert Tonyan scoring a ton of points. Boo. At least for a tight end. 19. Am I ever going to get one of these through? You always boo me. I think they're fine. Okay, 100%. Robert Tonyan with 19 points. Were you expecting this? Clearly not. He was on your bench. Who did you bench him for? Like, who's your starting tight end?
George Kittle got me 21.3 points, so I'm not too upset about this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. I guess I could have put him in a flex spot, but that'd be kind of weird.
There's only one team in the league right now that I think should start flexing tight ends, and it's Point Break, just because they have Kelce and oh my gosh, here's the little speedster, real lunch pail guy for the Saints.
No.
Where's number 7? Oh my gosh, he's a quarterback. He's a wide receiver.
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, yeah. Like, I could see Taysom Hill in a flex spot just because he might surprise you and break a game off for like 40, or he could get 1 point, which is what he's been doing all year.
I would still be nervous about it. Like, I like him fine if like you have nothing else in the tight end spot as just kind of like that volatile position, but
Yeah.
But Robert Tonyan,
how's he been doing this season, Robert Tonyan?
He's been pretty good. He's been doing about what I expected out of him. I drafted him because I thought he was very... I just thought that for the value where I got him, it was just way too high to skip him. 33rd round, which was crazy to me because the Packers don't have a ton of other receiving targets.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he caught 10 balls for 90 yards.
Yeah, so...
That's crazy good.
And it's actually funny, as soon as, I put him on the trade block a while ago.
Right.
He's still there. People are more than welcome to bid on him. I have so many tight ends that were like good. I already traded away Pat Freiermuth. I still have George Kittle. I still have TJ Hawkinson, and I have Robert Tonyan.
Well, here you go. You heard it here first. If you guys need a tight end in the Bad Owners League,
come to me. I've got all the good ones.
Got a king's ransom there. Robert Tonyan, clearly. All right, well, awesome. That is our tight end lost change of the week.
Lost change of the week for the defensive line slot, Baron Browning of the TD11 Tudgays. More TD11 Tudgays.
Yeah, they're loving these. But yeah, Baron Browning with 28 points. He had 26 last week, and every other week before that, he was in dime territory. Or sorry, not dime territory, donut territory.
Right.
He was getting like 3 points, 4 points, 0 points, 0 points. So yeah, I mean, big props to the Tudgays for sticking with him. I guess he picked him up with the 52nd pick in the draft, and he got 28 points in week 6. If this is all he does for you all year, that's still pretty good. Like maybe he only goes up from here like he has been, and he can stay that 15 to 20 point defensive lineman. That would be awesome. He's only 23. This could be his breakout year. He's also a linebacker, so he's got both of those. He's got that Swiss Army type,
Yeah, these tend to be your pass rushers, so that's huge potential for sacks, right? And that's what swings it huge.
Yeah, and he's a Denver Bronco on defense. That's always going to be good, as long as Russ is cooking. As long as Chef Russ is in the kitchen, you're going to want them on your defense.
Because defense is going to be out a lot.
They're going to be playing the whole game.
100%.
Gas. Can you imagine the looks in the locker room they give him after the game? They're like, dude,
I saw the halftime. I saw the halftime clip of him, trying to give people high fives and everyone just kind of ignoring him.
Yeah, he's weird. I don't even know. He seems like those like. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. We're a clean podcast, but Russell Wilson's a really weird dude.
Very true. But linebacker of the week. Linebacker bench warmer, Baron Browning again.
Yep, that's it. You're that Swiss Army knife, and you can play in either spot. Like you said, he's got sack potential. Anybody that's got that LBDL designation usually has sack potential, and Baron Browning definitely does. I want to know if the Tudgays stick with him because of this, because they easily could have been like, okay, well, I'm going to drop him, week 4, and they would have been kicking themselves.
Oh, 100%.
So we'll see how long he stays on the roster.
Yeah, that'll be interesting if he starts getting an active roster spot.
Yep.
But DB of the week, the last lost change, Kyle Duggar of the Big Orcas.
Big Orcas. This is your first player on lost change. So you've taken over the team. 26 points for Kyle Duggar. Not bad. I mean, he's had a pretty decent year. Like, it hasn't been bad at all. With 2 passes defended and an interception. I mean, that's 12 points right there. So
yeah, I think the scary thing about Kyle Duggar is he's putting up, not amazing numbers in general.
Not amazing.
But also his snap percentage is so low. And I think that, it's just a numbers game, right? Like, the less you're out on the field, you're just not going to be able to get as many points on average. And so it's nervous to start a player like that, at least for me.
Yeah, but the more he starts showing out, right, with passes defended and interceptions and showing that he can be a game breaker,
Oh yeah, he'll start getting more snaps for sure.
Yeah, they're going to be in a lot of close games this year. I think the Patriots, because they're probably like the most middling team I could possibly think of. It means they're never really going to always be favored or always be, a bottom tier team. You're going to really need those like playmakers and game breaking decision makers on defense. So yeah, Kyle Duggar, if he gets more snaps, I would stick with him. But if not, he could also be trade fodder. So we'll see. He could go either way.
100%. So moving out of the lost change of the week, let's go to the donuts of the week.
Let's not actually, because guys, for the first week in Dimes and Donuts and Bad Owners Fantasy, our name makes no sense. There are no donuts this week.
Yeah, what's going on? Wait, it's funny. There was almost a donut of the week. Jeff Wilson ended up with negative 0.5 points.
Who started Jeff Wilson? Who has Jeff Wilson?
I believe it was the Atlanta Cicadas.
That's a stacked room.
Yeah, while I was going through looking at all the numbers, I was like, oh man. That's tough.
But he started him or he was on the bench?
Oh no, he started him.
Okay,
Jeff Wilson's been having a pretty great season.
I feel like the last couple weeks he's been. I know he was a bench warmer last week.
Yeah, he got.
Sure.
So
he had like
yes, so far he's the 23rd overall fantasy running back.
Man, that hurts to hear because I'm pretty sure Najee Harris is like 23rd or 24th.
About there, yeah.
Yeah, and
you gave up a first round draft pick for him.
Yep, and Jeff Wilson was picked up of waivers for $1 by you.
Jeff Wilson was picked up for $1 by me, and then I flipped him for a 2023 second round pick.
Yep.
So I spent $1 of fab on a 2023 second round.
That's not fair. It wasn't just for him. There were other people. I mean, you gave him all the handcuffs, but
sure.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Jeff Wilson, negative 0.5 points. We'll just say that he's our honorary donut of the week.
Honorary donut of the week. I thought about that, but didn't end up going with it. It just wouldn't be pure. But yes, Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, anyway, I don't think I'd be able to find any Jeff Wilson highlights, honestly. So it works.
Right. I mean, he started for a whole year. Not this year, but the year before. I mean, not last year. I think the year before that, he was the starter.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, hey, he did have a 20-point game last week. I mean, it was against Carolina, so that doesn't really mean.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't really count. We skip those weeks. Okay, cool. So yeah, no real donuts of the week. We're just the Dimes podcast.
So now let's just move into if we're just Dimes podcast, let's just move into the achievements.
Yes.
Best manager, Irving Indica with an 88.5% efficiency. So out of the best possible lineup they could have set, they scored 88.5% of the amount of points they could have gotten. It's pretty good.
All right. Here's the problem that I have with the Irving Indica being the best manager. They had the best manager title last week as well.
Yep.
And said, man, best manager feels kind of hollow this week. I think it should feel kind of hollow this week too, because they scored. Let me see exactly what they scored.
294.22.
That's not bad. But when that's 88.5% of your efficiency, that's bad. And last week too, I mean, he scored. Gosh, I don't. Let me just pull it up because I really need to talk about this because the Irving Indica are blowing up my whole idea of what this season will be. So they got best manager, and they only scored 259 points last week. So they've gotten best manager in back-to-back weeks, not putting up like crazy huge numbers like we expected from them. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I did think that their team was going to be doing a little bit better. They were the number one power ranked team a few weeks ago.
4-0 to start, and they've lost so many games since. It's crazy.
It was the curse.
It was the curse of giving them the 4-0, I guess, or giving them the number one seed like every single week. But yeah, we'll see going forward. I mean, their max points, they still look fine. It just surprises me that the best manager 2 weeks in a row. I think that they're totally
fine. They have so much crazy talent on that team. They have DeAndre Hopkins who's coming back this week after Hollywood Brown's injury. They're going to be okay.
All right, yeah, we'll see.
Well, so let's take a look at the least efficient manager, the worst manager. It was you again.
Again, back-to-back weeks. But this is what I'm talking about. I feel like I'd rather have worst manager when I'm still putting up 280 something points on 77.5% efficiency. Because the week prior, right, like my max while I was worst manager was 385, and this week it was 360 something. So the talent's there. I just stink.
Right. So you as a manager are being carried by just the overall skill level of your team.
Correct. Like me and the Trash Fires are the complete opposite.
Right.
Like every week I start somebody, I'm like, oh, this makes total sense. This is going to be amazing. This is going to pop off. And then, I think honestly the worst decisions offensively, these last 2 weeks have just been so bad. I mean, starting Teddy Bridgewater, who gets hurt on the first play of the game, getting a donut at quarterback last week, that was awful. Starting Carson Wentz on a Thursday night football game, I was like, okay, well, this might work. Thursday night football can't always be bad. It can't be the worst thing ever. It's the Bears. They're not incredible. And Carson Wentz, going into that Thursday night game, was 6-0 in Thursday night football games. These are the weird stats you got to look for. And, yeah, only had 4 points. So, offensively, I need some help. I had 5 players under 5 points all on offense this week.
Yeah, and the Trash Fires that sent me a message, they wanted to make it explicitly clear. They're a big numbers team, right? They wanted to make it extremely clear. You are the only manager this week to have had under 80% efficiency.
Let's go.
So congratulations to you.
Still scored a lot, just underneath the median, just barely. I think I missed it by a couple points.
Right.
So, yeah, if I start one player here, another player here,
you can pull it back around. It's definitely not a reason to panic.
I'm not concerned. Worst manager. Yeah. Keep telling me. Keep telling me.
All right, well, let's keep it moving. The highest points in loss. This might have contributed to, again, like you said, a bit of a hollow best manager victory. Irving Indica. They put up 294.22 points, but they ended up against the Trash Fires, who put up 302.22 points.
You can only play who's on your schedule each week, and I think the Irving Indica definitely benefited in the beginning of the season from playing some cupcakes to get that early 4-0 start, and I believe they're starting to play the good teams now. They played me last week, lost. They played the Trash Fires this week, lost. This is what happens. You can score 294 points all day and still lose if you're playing somebody that gets hot at the right time.
Right. 100%. And so that's a tough loss for the Irving Indica, especially when it seems like they really need to get some wins to start stabilizing in order to make it their, keep their momentum going to make it to the playoffs. But the lowest points in win was you.
That's right.
You lucked out, I believe. Did you also have this last week as well?
Lucked out. No, I didn't have it. I don't think I had it last week. I mean, maybe I did. I don't. You'd have to look at that real quick. You can look at that while I'm talking about this. So, yeah, lowest points in win. It's not like I scored 246, right? I mean, the person I played, again, you can only play who's on your schedule. I mean, I scored 282 points. Definitely not where I like to be, but 77% of your max scoring 282. That's not too bad. And yeah, I mean, I was excited about these bye weeks going forward because I think I play the worst 4 teams in the league over the next 4 weeks.
Right.
And this is just what happens, right? I might get, biggest blowout too. I usually get biggest blowout because honestly, whoever I play, they don't score very many. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. It's getting really weird. And so I've gotten biggest blowout a bunch. I get lowest points in win this week, even though it's like a 40-point deficit. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. I can't control it.
Yeah, and just to confirm, last week you did also get the lowest points in win.
Amazing. Yeah, and I beat the Irving Indica, which meant they had even less points.
Yeah, you got 265.06 and won against 258.44. So you're, I'm just gonna have to go out and say it. You're just getting lucky.
Yeah, I've only lost. I lost to CD's not. Only team that I've outright lost to. The other 3 losses are
median losses. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next accolade, the biggest blowout. Oh my gosh, this was the big one. 293.58 to 231.62.
Yeah, TD11 Tudgaze, all the people you see on the screen right now contributed to that too. Joe Burrow had a great game. Tyreek Hill had a pretty good game. Yeah, Stephon Diggs had an incredible. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was crazy. And that was, of course, against the Dallas Clovers, who, you know, have traded away a lot of their talent and having to.
The lowly Clovers, yeah, 231 points. I think their best player this week was like Marcus Mariota as like their quarterback, and Quinnen Williams, who we talked about earlier in the dime segment. So, yeah, the blowout was going to be there no matter what. I mean, they had Cortland Sutton, Tyler Conklin. Like, they had a lot of players just score under 5 points, and that's going to get you blown out.
100%. And then finally, we've got the most narrow victory, the Trash Fires, beating Irving Indica 302.22 to 294.22. Wow. Very sad for the Irving Indica.
Yeah, I want to see how many times they've had narrow victory, too. Because you would think with a team that's putting up, like, you know, not like the craziest point, that they'd hit it more, but I'd have to look.
It would be fun at the end of the season to have, you know, see who got the most of each of these awards.
Yes, like who had the most blowouts, who had points and wins, who had the most narrow victories. We definitely need to do that.
That would be fun.
I mean, I'll spend like 30 minutes a day just like on the Sleeper app looking at all these stats just because it's so fast. Yeah, like once you have this much raw data, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah.
It's just so fun to mess with. But let's move into the final scores, the head-to-head matchups, the median. There we have it.
So we've got CD's Nuts, who played the Atlanta Cicadas. They lost, dropped to 6-6. The Atlanta Cicadas win both the median and their normal victory, and go to 8-4. The TD11 Tudgaze, joining them at 8-4, beat the Dallas Clovers. They scored 231 points and now dropped to 1-11. Easily the lowest we have in the league right now. The Plano Nukes back to 500 after scoring 300.26 points against the newly found Big Orcas at 281.6.
My first time actually getting over that 300-point hump, by the way.
Is it really?
Yes.
Well, congratulations. 300 points. That's awesome. Yeah, Irving Indica, they are now at 7-5. They have 294.22 against the Trash Fires 302.2. As we mentioned before, that was the narrow victory. Very, very close. Both get the median win. And then the Castle Rock Rockers, with only 282.28 points, took on the Point Break FC at 245. Point Break now drops to 3-9, but they are still 2 games clear of the Dallas Clovers for that last spot.
Wow.
The median, of course, being 287.93, which is one of the highest we've had in a while.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of teams did pretty well this week.
Yeah, I wasn't
expecting. It seems like a lot of them are very close together, too, in points. Like, everyone's within like about 20 points of each other, outside of a few exceptions.
Yeah, definitely. There are, 2 or 3, teams down there at the bottom. But yeah, if you're over 280 points, you're pretty much... I mean, everybody's within like 20 points here. Like from the Castle Rock Rockers to the Trash Fires, it's really a 20-point difference.
Awesome. Well, let's do a full breakdown of the whole season, where everyone's looking at now. So now, the Trash Fires were ahead last week. After stat corrections, it got a little jumbled, but now they once again have the crown of being the only person with a 9-3 record. Alone at the top.
Alone at the top. We thought they were alone at the top last week. Like you said, we actually became tied at 7-3. But yeah, you're getting 2 victories this week. 9-3. Sole possession. Very nice.
Yeah, and then TD11 Tudgaze at number 2. Atlanta Cicadas at 3. So those 3 are kind of chilling at the top. Not crazy surprising, I think. Well, I still stand by Trash Fires are pretty surprising. It shocks me every time I see how well they're doing.
Yeah, the Trash Fires are definitely surprising. I think it is surprising that we have 3 teams tied at 8-4 this far into the season.
Yep.
I don't think anybody expected us to have a 1-11 team. So were going to be some good teams just based on, win share.
Right.
But yeah, 3 8-4 teams. Pretty exciting.
Okay, so let's do the power rankings. Who do you think's top 3 right now?
Yeah, it's so much harder this. I don't know. Last week I was like so much more sure of myself, but so many things have moved. So I remember I had Atlanta Cicadas were my number 1, Irving Indica my 2, and then Trash Fires 3. Like those were my power rankings last week. I think I'm going to keep Trash Fires in the 3rd slot. Again, the more wins you can accumulate, the more times that we can say, "Oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this." I mean, it's again they lose 6 games in a row and still be 500, which is really hard to do. So I'm going to keep them in my 3 slot. I'm going to keep the Atlanta Cicadas in my 1 spot. And then I don't have my 3rd person yet. I can't decide.
Okay.
It's so hard between myself, the Irving Indica, and CD's Nuts. I don't think the Tudgays are going to be up there.
Interesting.
Personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I would either choose one of those 3 to be that 3rd slot, but I don't know. I'll decide after yours.
Yeah, so I actually agree with the Atlanta Cicadas being number 1. Going into the season, I thought the Atlanta Cicadas were the strongest team, and they're now 8-4. I think that they've earned the right to once again be called the strongest team. That's where I have them at right now. I think they've sort of fixed a lot of their management issues with like personnel, trying to figure out who out of my bench and out of my starters, who's really going to be those every week starters who are going to be more depth pieces. I think they've kind of started figuring all of that out. So I think they're the number 1 right now. Clear number 1 for me.
Okay.
I actually have TD Love and Tudgays at number 2.
Okay.
I think they have a ton of talent on their team. They've got a pretty solid grasp of who to start, who not to start. I think that they're second in points for right now, so they're playing pretty efficiently. They're my number 2 spot out of everyone that's there. And at number 3, I have Irving Indica. I think that despite dropping to 7-5, they're there. Now, notably, I don't have Trash Fires in my top 3, right?
Right.
I can't, and I keep saying it, and maybe this isn't, maybe I'm just going to keep getting proven wrong every single week, but I don't see how a team that is composed of the players that are on that team are going to be able to keep it up for the long term. I think that they're having an awesome streak. Clearly the management's there, right? They're playing super efficiently.
I just think something's got to give.
It's only week 6. I mean, we still have 11 more weeks.
It's only week 6, but we don't play the full 11.
True. True. So it's, 6 more weeks until playoffs start? 7 more weeks? I don't know.
Yeah, we're almost halfway done. I'm saying, I really do think that it would be hard for him to not be a playoff team. If not top.
I 100% think that he's a playoff team at this point. I think he's locked himself in with a 9-3 record.
You were convinced he was going to drop out of the playoffs entirely. So,
100%. I thought TD Love and Tudgays was going to drop out of the playoffs too, or Atlanta Cicadas.
Right.
But they're flipping around now. I mean, every single week it's just totally different. 100%, week to week. So have you decided who you think your final person in your top 3 is?
Yeah, I think I'll put the Tudgays in, actually.
Okay.
After seeing him go from 5-1, and dropping over the last 2 weeks, that was kind of like, I don't know. But yeah, I'm going over their roster right now, and I think that they'll probably.
Their roster is just so solid.
Yeah, it's really good. I think it's pretty bye-week proof too. I think just like my roster, we don't have a lot of the same teams. We have a lot of variety, and I think that definitely helps them. So yeah, I'll put Tudgays at 3. So again, just to recap, Atlanta Cicadas 1, the Trash Fires 2, and the TD Love and Tudgays at 3 for me.
So who do you think the 4 teams that are going to completely miss the playoffs are going to be?
Yeah, so last week I said it was going to stay the way it was.
Right.
I said it was going to be the Plano Nukes, the Big Orcas, Point Break, and the Dallas Clovers. And, seeing CD's Nuts fall so much and seeing the Plano Nukes rise so much really makes me want to switch the 2. So I'm going to give it one more week before I switch it. I'm still going to say that the bottom 4 are going to stay the bottom 4, just because your points for are still, pretty low.
Yeah.
at 1609. Your points against, again, I wanted to bring that up last week because nobody was talking about it. Like every single week, somebody's going off on you. And I know that's your fault. Like I know that sucks, but it doesn't mean that your points for were necessarily raising. So that's why I think I'm going to keep it here this week. I'll give you my hot seat of the week, and then if you raise, then I'll bump CD's Nuts down, or Irving Indica down, or I'll bump somebody down. But I think you guys being at 6-6, the two 500 teams makes a lot of sense right now.
Yeah. I think one thing that should be taken into consideration when looking at points for is that my first 2 weeks were terrible. Started all the wrong people. Players like Darnell Mooney, who I thought were going to be awesome, not performing. Players that I didn't realize were going to be great, that I had chosen a little later in the draft because I saw potential in them, but weren't, starters week 1, week 2. With Jerry Sneed, who's now a top 20.
Irving, 2 weeks of scoring like under 250.
Exactly.
Their points for are still huge.
Exactly.
But that's why I'm keeping you there, because everybody has down weeks. Like I've scored 261. Like everybody has down.
Sure. No, 100%.
Your down weeks are definitely more down than most. I'll give you that, especially your week 1. Is your week 1 still the worst anybody's played?
Yes, week 1 for me was still the worst scoring week of any of the teams. But now that we've got it figured out, I think I am easy into the playoffs.
Okay, you're saying easy, which means you don't think you're just going to be in the 6th slot. So who's moving out if you're going?
Honestly, I think it's going to be either you or CD's Nuts.
Okay.
I have too much faith in Trash Fires. I think record at this point is 9-3. Like you can't say they're going to miss.
You think that one game difference is a super big deal at this point in the season? I think it can be.
The what?
You think the one game difference then between myself and the Trash Fires is really that sticking point?
Well, to me, the issue that I have is that your points against are so low, and I think the last 2 weeks you've gotten lucky on wins.
The last 2 I've gotten lucky.
Which, if you had been... yes, the last 2 weeks you've gotten lucky. If those 2 had gone a different direction, you're 6-6 right now.
Okay, sure. I would push back a little bit. Because my points against are really low, but like look at the actual scores of those weeks. Like I won by 40 something. So it's not my fault that somebody scored 245 against me. Like the week before, Pratt and I both had down weeks. Still 267 to 259. I guess I can give you that one.
I think it's mostly that there's
one. Yeah. That one's confusing. 237 points. I don't see how that's against me when I score 293.
True.
Again, I can't choose how many points someone's going to score against me. I can only choose how many points I'm going to score. And, being in the top 4 and max points for right now is kind of a big deal.
Right.
Or the top half. But totally fair. The points against is scaring you. I mean, that's fair. That's just my only pushback on it, is that not really something I can control. I would say that maybe the Irving Indica win, because we both had down weeks and I had like a less bad week is there. But now I only have to play them one more time. I've already gotten a win off of them.
Totally. No, and that's why I think it's really between you or the CD's Nuts team, just because I think that those 4 other teams are so strong. I do think that the Trash Fires, it's tough for me to say because they are the alone number 1 team. I just think it's not as strong as it seems. And so I'm curious to see how the rest of the season develops. And again, like you said, you don't control the points against. I think maybe you got lucky those last 2 weeks, but then your team's going to rebound. You have a super strong defensive room, right? It'll be interesting to see. I think that it would not shock me, right? Like, I'm not going to act like I'm shocked if you make the playoffs, right? You're clearly a contender to win the whole thing right at this point.
The 2 weeks.
But I could see you sliding out.
I was also the worst manager both of those weeks. So it's not like the roster's not there.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting. I think that there's a lot of good teams competing for the playoff slot.
Yeah, the Plano Nukes move up, and either the Rockers or the CD's Nuts move out, in your opinion, still.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
You'll never know.
Gotcha.
I think 100% someone will drop out, and I will take that spot, though.
Yeah, I think one thing we can all agree on is that the Dallas Clovers are definitely the worst team, which is tough, but it's what they want. This is how they're trying to play, and they're doing well. I mean, they still aren't lowest in max points, though, which could be a problem. They need to make sure that they're scoring a little less.
Right. I think that'll catch up. They traded away a lot of players who early on were making a lot of points, and so I think they just still have a bit of a boost with how long they're still left in the season. I'm sure Point Break is going to pass them.
Yeah, no, could not agree more. I think that, Point Break will definitely, stay in the slot that they're at. I don't think that they'll be a worse team than the Dallas Clovers, but as far as like the max points for concerned for draft position, I think Dallas Clovers will have that number 1 overall pick in 2023.
Agreed. Well, is there anything else you want to go over looking at all of this?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about all of our main stats here. Everybody can see the movement. Everybody can see the record. I think we can go over like a quick, week 7 overview, like who's going to be playing who. You want to do that real quick?
Yeah.
So we've got the Castle Rock Rockers and the Big Big Orcas, the newest expansion team in the BAAD Owners Fantasy League. Then we've got the Plano Nukes and CD's Nuts. Plano Nukes right now already projected 306 points. Have you already set your lineup for that week?
Yes, I have.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's up there against CD's Nuts. I think they have a lot of players on bye. That could be an interesting one.
That's a big game because that'll be over. That we'll be competing for that 6th spot. Yeah,
you're both 6-6 right now. So hopefully, somebody's gonna move, right? That's exciting. Irving Indica is playing the TD11 Tudgays. So you've got 2 big boy teams going at each other. Looks like the Tudgays definitely have a lot of bye weeks this week as well. The Atlanta Cicadas play the Trash Fires. We've got a lot of really big matchups this week.
True, this is a big week.
Yeah, so Atlanta Cicadas, they're talking a lot of trash in the chat. They think they're going to be that number 1 like they were projected at the beginning of the season. They've come back a lot. I mean, they were 4-4. They've won the last 4 games they've played. So, Atlanta Cicadas moving up. Trash Fires, desperately holding on to that number 1 slot. Luckily this week, no matter what the stat correction is, they will still be 9-3. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't change anything. And then the Dallas Clovers will play Point Break FC. It is the tank bowl of all tank bowls.
Wow. That's going to be... they should stream that on Amazon Prime.
That game needs an Amazon stream.
Wow. That's a Thursday Night Football game if I've ever seen one in fantasy.
Yeah, that is definitely a Thursday Night Football game. You guys are definitely like that, 325 start. You're America's Game of the Week between 500 teams that are, good rivals. It's going to be awesome. We've got a lot of really good matchups this week.
100%. Well, that should wrap it up for this week. The Week 6 BAAD Owners Recap, Dimes and Donuts. You heard it here first. Honestly, with bye weeks and injuries, this is when things really start getting interesting. So it'll be awesome now to see week to week what's changing.
Yep, it's only getting crazier from here. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week for Week 7.